Hello again and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is Jesse here and I am back for another hardware review. This time we're taking a look at the 2021 iPad Pro, the M1 iPad Pro to be exact, and this is the 12.9 version. There is a 11-inch and a 12.9-inch screen version, and there is one major difference between those. And both of these models do have the new Apple M1 chip processor in it that is basically the same ones that is in the new iMac, the newer MacBook Pros, but no, you cannot run Mac apps on this particular iPad. So this is what we're taking a look at here today. We're at our home screen here. I'll just give you a tour of the device. Overall, it's basically, it's an iPad. The only main hardware difference is that the older versions, they kind of had rounded edges, your phones and your tablets, they kind of were rounded. These go back to more of the iPhone 4 days where they were a little bit more squared off. Yes, you have the rounded corners like this here, but from, you look at the side here, it's more of a flat instead of a rounded edge on all around the device. I have the space gray version here. You notice also in the one corner you have more cameras, better cameras. You have a flash, so that is good for OCR and especially magnification, using your device as a CCTV. I know all these reviewers talk about, oh, why would you quit using cameras on a tablet? Well, you realize not just for taking pictures, but there are a lot of other maybe unconventional uses that blind and low vision users can really take advantage of with a camera on a device like this. And this does work amazingly well as a CCTV with the built-in magnification, the built-in Magnifier app, and if you have a stand like the Just Stand or the Belkin tablet stage, which I'm also doing a hardware review on for you guys. So yeah, we'll get into that in a moment. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, you've got your Thunderbolt port. It's been upgraded. It's USB-C, but it is actually a Thunderbolt. So you can plug more accessories like different hard drives and monitors and accessories into it. I have not really done that because I don't have any devices that really take advantage of that feature. And then, of course, on all devices, you got your power button or your lock button, your volume buttons. I mean, there's really nothing. It's an iPad. The main difference between the 11-inch and the 12.9-inch is the screen. The 11-inch still uses your traditional LCD screen that all iPads have used for a long time. The 12.9-inch, however, they have moved to this micro LED screen, micro LED, which is not quite OLED. It's kind of, I would say, in between OLED and LCD, but I would say closer to OLED as far as its picture quality goes. I mean, look at the wallpaper here. You look at this black portion here, and on an OLED screen, you're basically only lighting up the pixels that need to be lit. So blacks will appear, like that part of the monitor is actually turned off. Whereas this LED, mini LED, yes, there are backlights, but there are so many more regions than your typical LCD display. And so because there's a lot more fine detail, some of those sections can be turned off and you get this area here. And I don't know if it's coming through on the video, but when I look at it directly, it looks black. It does not look grayish. It does look pure black, which is great. I've watched movies, YouTube videos, played games, and they all look and run beautifully. They all look great. I mean, this screen just pops. I've looked at some of my photo library. Everything looks really, really good. So you do have the better screen. Otherwise, both the 11-inch and the 12.9-inch use the same M1 chip. They have the same amount of memory. If you spring for the, what is it? I think it's the 1 gig or 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte, you get a little bit more RAM. I went with the 512 because this thing was expensive as it is. This thing starts at $1099, and I would honestly recommend that you get the next step up if you're going to spend that much anyway, because that only comes with, I believe, 128 gigs of storage. I went with the 512 because I just didn't want to spend for the 1 or 2 terabyte. And even on my old 2018 iPad Pro, it was still doing pretty good with 256. So I've got some wiggle room. I can do video stuff. I can do games. I can do apps and movies on this iPad just fine for quite a while, I think. I think 512 for my uses would be perfectly acceptable. So, I mean, that is really the hardware. And now we really just get into like the performance. I mean, bottom line, this thing runs extremely fast. You know, there's my widgets on the left. You know, I mean, general use, I don't know that you're going to notice a lot of difference, especially if you come from like the 2018 iPad Pro, which was what I was using before this. I don't notice a ton of difference in general performance when I load a demanding game or an app, or even, you know, higher intensive processes like that. I do notice a little bit of a difference. I do definitely notice some loading time decreases for sure. But on the same note, like the 2018 iPad Pro still holds up very well. So we'll get into that more at the end of the video. But performance-wise, it is really good. You know, let's open up the old app switcher. It's hard looking through my phone and like, there we go. So everything is out of my app switcher. Let's load up, there we got voice stream. I'll just go into a book. Boom, we're in a book. I don't even know what it is. I just loaded something. But the blacks, again, this is not coming through on the video maybe as well. But when you look directly at the screen, it looks great. You know, I can load up, let's see, what is this? Some game. Apple Arcade. So I did get a free 3-month trial of Apple Arcade, and I'm going to start doing some videos on that to show you guys some of the Apple Arcade games that I have been playing with a little bit. So, you know, boom, it's almost just instantly in. Oh yeah, this is the cool pinball game, I think. Let's go home. Let's see if I can do open Mario Kart. Boom, we're in Mario Kart. The loading is, you know, I can flip it up like this. We're in. I could go race. Oh, okay. Oh, our event is over. Okay. Boo, 11th. All right, so you get our leaderboard there. Let's click our little X. There we go. But I mean, everything, like I said, it's an iPad. There's really not a whole lot new or different. If you know what an iPad is, it's basically that, just with a better screen. You still got the 4 speakers on either corner, which I very much appreciate, because when watching videos or playing games, the sound doesn't sound lopsided or anything like that. Of course, there's no headphone jack, so you got to go Bluetooth or use an adapter. But the battery life is, you know, again, pretty similar to what you would get on any other iPad. You know, I probably get, if I use it really, really heavily, around 8-10 hours-ish, somewhere in there. But, you know, I use this in spurts, so I'll usually get at least a few days out of it, at least the way I use it, so it works fine. It charges quickly, no problem there. This isn't specifically an iPad Pro thing, but I want to mention it here. There's a couple little caveats or a couple little kind of a PSA warnings here that I have for you, just regarding Apple in general. So when I first took this out of the box, I was going to basically import everything from an iCloud backup from my 2018 iPad Pro. Well, the problem was I was actually running a iOS 14 beta at the time, and when I tried to restore from it, it kind of showed up, but it was dimmed. It would not let me import that because the actual iOS versions didn't match. I would have had to have a public version of 14.6 or later, which was not out yet. And so I couldn't do it. So unfortunately, I had to use this as another way to, or another excuse to clean the fridge, so to speak. And I installed everything from scratch. I basically went through and looked at the games and apps that I really wanted and started fresh, which is not a bad thing because I have literally hundreds of apps on both my phone and my tablet. So it's good to clean things out every once in a while. But that really brought me to a bummer part on Apple's side of things. So other storefronts like Steam, Xbox, probably some other ones, if you purchase something but it gets delisted from the store, you can download it again. I paid for it, even though it's digital, I paid for it, it's mine, I can re-download it. Apple apparently hasn't chosen not to allow this, which really sucks because I found out, I did not know that a couple of games that I really like actually got delisted from the App Store. Remember, I did a video for Maximum Car. I did a video for, what was it called? I did a video for Giant Boulder of Death. Those are just fun, little entertaining. They were games that worked really well on a touchscreen. They were simple, they were addictive, they were fun. But they're just no longer there. I can't pull them down from another device. I could manually back up and restore from iTunes, theoretically, but I don't even know if that would work really well these days. And I hate iTunes for Windows as it is. So I really have a problem. You know, it's one thing if something is free or if let's say you go from the 32 to 64-bit processor and then things just, you know, break and they don't actually open or run. No, I downloaded the public beta of iOS 15 on my 2018 iPad Pro, and it still runs those two games that I have on that device perfectly fine. I played a lot of Maximum Car the other day just for the heck of it. So it's not like they don't run, but I really hate the fact that, especially if you buy something and then it gets delisted, well, what if you lose your iPad, or if it breaks, or you upgrade a device like I did, or for what, you know, you encounter other catastrophe that happens. You just don't have access to those things that you bought anymore. And I really think that sucks. And I really would encourage people, if you have encountered a similar type of thing, you know, be constructive about it, but let Apple know, let whatever storefront you're dealing with that does that sort of thing, let them know. It's like, hey, I paid for this. You know, I understand that, okay, if you get delisted, no one new can buy it, that's fine. But let me have access to that in my purchase library. I even tried beaming it, you know, the share, and then you share it over like NFC or whatever. No, that doesn't work either. So I just don't have access to that content, those apps and games on my new M1 iPad, which really bites. So those are a couple of the install hiccups that I had with the beta. Just a PSA, make sure that you, if you really want to import, that you're either not running a beta or that you have a new enough version where they will play with each other. And then this whole delisted App Store nonsense. Again, this is a digital thing that all of these digital storefronts really need to figure out sooner rather than later, because it really stinks. I mean, aside from that, like I said, I have played games, I have watched movies, and this thing is fantastic for watching videos, I mean, the clarity, you know, it supports HDR, so if you have a movie that does support that, I mean, everything just looks super crisp. You watch something that has like a lot of nighttime scenes in it or something, it looks black. You can also, like I said, I use this as a magnifier. Now, this isn't probably going to show up well because I'm looking through essentially two cameras and my phone and my iPad. Now, okay, I've got it on a dark inverted. Yeah, I can't get, I got my phone on my tripod. Oh, if I move my hand out of the way, that helps. It looks okay through the screen, through the phone. It does look better if I kind of look around my phone. It looks better on the directly on the tablet itself. But, you know, especially if you get like the Belkin stand or the any other stand, the Just stand that I reviewed, this works great as a CCTV. The only downside is when you do use these inverted colors, the downside to that is despite the great screen, you still are going to have, if you choose a black background color scheme, your blacks are going to appear gray. They're going to appear a bit washed out. And I think that really has more to do with the camera itself, the post-processing or possibly lack thereof when doing that. Because when I used like Vision Assist back in the day, that app did a pretty good job. You really had to fiddle with it to get it right. But if you played with the contrast and brightness, you could get a really nice, sharp, black background. I don't even think that app is available in the store either nowadays. I'd have to double check, but I thought I looked for it and I didn't see it there. So if that is gone, again, that's a really disappointing. But like, if you know, any other magnifier app that I have or the built-in magnifier that iOS has, it still looks good. It still works great. But if you are using low vision and you're using one of those inverted or dark color schemes, it's just going to not maybe look as crisp of a black background as, say, some of your standalone CCTV magnifier devices. So, I mean, really, that is the iPad M1 iPad Pro. There's really not a heck of a lot else to say about it. I mean, it's an iPad. It is a faster iPad. It has a better screen. It has a better camera. But at the end of the day, it is still an iPad. In this case, an iPad Pro. You know, you've got a better Thunderbolt port, a better screen, better camera, a really, really fast processor. This thing is definitely going to last at least probably 4 to 5 years, possibly more, and still run pretty well because Apple generally does a pretty good job of not abandoning their devices for several years after release. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the M1 iPad Pro. Like I said, depending on the model and the storage that you get, they start at $10.99 and can go ridiculously more cost depending on the size and storage you get. You have the better screen only on the 12.9-inch version, so if that is a factor and you really, really want that, you have to go with the big one for now. If you have an older device, I would say older than the 2018 iPad Pro, and you're looking for a new one, this might not be a bad one to get. What I would say though is if you want to be a little bit more price conscious, you can't afford or don't want to spend that much for an iPad Pro, you know, maybe give a serious look at the 2020 iPad Air. I don't have one of those, but I've seen a couple through work and they are solid tablets, man. They basically have all the innards, all the specs of an iPad Pro from last year minus a couple little, maybe not quite as good of a display, but I think if I remember correctly, they do have a camera flash, and they're quite a bit cheaper than the iPad Pro line. And so if you want more of a powerful but yet budget-friendly device, maybe look at the iPad Air. But if you really want the latest and greatest, and you haven't upgraded in a long time, or you don't have a tablet at all and you want to get one, this is a great device. If you have, let's say, an iPad Pro from 2018 or so, is it worth the upgrade? I would kind of say no. I would say that, unless you really, really have to have the latest and greatest, and you really, really want that, you go to an Apple store or something and you really see a noticeable difference in the display or the display camera combo. That's why I really bought it, as I wanted that display and camera combo, especially through some of the stuff that I do at work. I wanted to see if it was worth recommending to some of our clients. And then, just general tech uses that I have where, even for me, I look back and go, that probably wasn't the most necessary purchase that I ever made, but I don't necessarily regret it. If you have that newer model, I would say you just really have to weigh, do you really want to spend that extra money? And are these couple of extra things, are they really, really worth that for you in order to do that? If you have a lot of disposable income, you want the latest and the greatest, sure. Otherwise, yeah, you could probably hold off till next year. So that is the iPad Pro. It still has its iPad OS limitations. I really, really wish that on a Windows machine, I could just, access the Files app area of the device and copy and paste files back and forth. I do have a few use cases, really large files or a chunk of a lot of files that I would really love to be able to manipulate a lot easier without having to go through cloud services and whatnot. But Apple just is still deathly afraid of people just not understanding what copy and paste is, so you don't have that functionality. So you do get some of the just inherent limitations, whether it's file management or device control, like, oh, if I plug another audio device into it, can I easily manage and switch between them, or things like that. Or, hooking up certain devices may or may not be compatible. I've heard some of the Thunderbolt devices may or may not work, depending on how old that Thunderbolt device is. There are you don't have multiple user accounts. So if you do want to have, you have this as a family tablet, but you can't have each person still have their own account, which is kind of stupid, really, when you think about it. But other than that, it is an iPad. It is a very, very fast iPad. It is a very great looking iPad via the screen and the camera, but it is an iPad. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, twitch.tv/illegally-cited, illegally-cited.com, and right here on YouTube. So until next time, I will chat with you guys again later.
Stop recording video.